Anyway, since we seem to be out of witnesses, I thought I'd drink a little.
We're talking right now. So, good afternoon, Tyler. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm great. You poured me a great drink. Tell me about this. What am I drinking?
I did. You may notice this is not my home office. This is not Tyler's home office. We are in the premises, working as you would on any given day in the office. So because of that, our surroundings are slightly different, but I do not have the mixings for the straight law cocktail. So we've had to make do with what we keep around the office in case of emergencies. So what I've done is I've got a bottle from Costco of Woodford Reserve fine bourbon. And I've mixed two bourbon sours. One for me, one for Tyler. Which is just a mixture of bourbon, simple syrup, and lemon. So how is it?
It's good. Yeah, very good.
It's not a girly drink? I think you maybe asked me if that was a girly drink.
You know what? The bourbon.
There's no whipped cream on the top of it. If that's what makes something a girly drink.
There's no umbrella, so I don't think I have to be embarrassed. I don't.
And I'm not seeing clients today. So if because of COVID, our door's locked, we are in separate offices. I wouldn't be wearing my Hard Rock Athens t-shirt where I'm meeting with a client. I have a tie and a suit. I look like a lawyer. You're looking a little more dapper with a button shirt and everything.
At least there's buttons, I guess. That's something.
So I thought we'd shift gears a little bit. I was having breakfast this morning and I'm on my iPad looking at the news, and you can't turn on news or Twitter today without a plethora of thoughts, opinions, reporting on the George Floyd death at the hands of a police officer in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then the resultant riots that have been taking place, lootings, according to some. And it caused me pause. I've been a lawyer for 34 years. I was with the Law Society for several years. I've worked with Access to Justice for several years. And at the heart, it seems to me, of what's happening in Minneapolis right now is a sense of frustration with particularly Black people in the United States, definitely in Minneapolis, that feel like the law is not treating them equally, that they have a risk at the hands of police that other people don't have. I think that's fair to say is the source of a lot of their frustration. And the thing that struck me was sometimes as Canadians, we get pretty smug, I think, as we look south of the border and we, point at Donald Trump with ridicule and others. What do you think? Do you think Canada is significantly better in terms of our standards of justice than the United States? What are your thoughts, Tyler?
I think we've got the same system, right? I mean, we've got the same judicial system essentially that they've got. There is this contrast where we don't seem to have the, at least not the rioting and the big social movements that seem to be happening in the US for the last at least several years. Black Lives Matter kind of movement that we've seen that's been, important. So yeah, we haven't seen that here, and that's interesting as to why there's a difference in Canada. Yeah.
And so what do you attribute that to?
Well, I mean, clearly we have a smaller population, and we do seem to have less, less violent encounters. I would think, I'll admit, we don't prep for these things, and I haven't put a lot of thought into that. It seems like Canada doesn't have the same number of violent encounters that the US does. Maybe that's because we've got a smaller population. Maybe it's our stricter gun control. Maybe it's a cultural thing. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's complex. I think too many people simplify everything and they say, well, depending on what side of the spectrum we're on. One side might say, well, we just don't have, the smug people would say, we're not as racist as Americans.
Oh.
Not so sure about that. Other people would say we have a better social safety net, so there's not that same sense of alienation, perhaps, that those that are at the bottom of the socioeconomic scale feel that they perhaps do in the United States.
Yeah.
The history of racial tension is somewhat unique. We didn't have the Civil War in Canada.
Yeah, of course.
Slavery does not have the same connotation in Canada as it does in the United States, but we do have, I think, some fairly significant issues in dealing with Aboriginal culture in Canada.
Right.
Did see a shooting some years back at Oka.
Right.
We forget that, where a person was killed.
So let's draw a parallel there. So tell me, so that one, that shooting you're referring to, as much as I recall, was it was sort of an Aboriginal group who felt as if there was some injustice. They weren't.
There was some issue about land claims, and I think, without simplifying too much, you had an Aboriginal group feeling like their claims or their interests were not respected, and they sought to establish by force on some level their entitlement, and police were called in. I think armed forces, if I recall, were called in, and at some point there was a shooting. It got to that stage.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't seen rioting like you've mentioned happened in Missouri and Ferguson, or now in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Other examples of that, but I think, to me, what that gets to, and it's kind of why I brought it up today, is that this broader notion of justice and why we should give a shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as a humanitarian, we should care when the government takes a life, perhaps without any justification. Appears to potentially be the case in Minneapolis. But what about to your own sense of personal safety and contentment, I suppose? Should you care? Does it actually matter? And I tweeted this morning, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk to you about. It's interesting that we watched this horrible situation where George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. And then we see the riots that are going on.
Yeah.
But yet most of us, in my experience, don't think justice is our issue. It's not my problem. I'm not getting arrested. I'm not in court. And I guess my sense is justice is a pretty big issue, even if it doesn't touch us directly. And so if you have a segment of your community that doesn't feel like they matter, or that they are listened to, like other people, particularly people with money, that can lead to significant problems. And you're sort of seeing, I think, police and minorities in the United States, particularly Black people, really being the canaries, in my opinion, in the coal mine, where you have heightened conflict. But at the source of that, I think there is a real issue of justice, in the sense that police are frustrated. They feel like there's a heightened risk to them, probably, and it causes some officers possibly or probably to do things that are really offensive. And you see other people that are disproportionately in contact with the police because of their socioeconomic and social difficulties.
Right.
And so they're in a battle that is often ugly, but there's this broader thing, and I think it's what I see in justice is, in Canada, and this is why I don't think we should get too smug, you get better and more justice if you got a pocket full of money.
Yeah, there's no question about that, right?
People like talking about it, and we pretend that it's otherwise, but am I wrong?
No, you're not. Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, let's look at, I guess, a family law situation that you and I deal with all the time. If people want what's fair, what's right, what the law says, what the legislation says, they want to get what's fair. Sometimes you're not going to get there by negotiating. You're not going to get there collaboratively. Sometimes you got to get there. You got to go let a judge decide. And tons of clients, of course, say, yeah, that's what I want to do. Let's go push it. If a judge could only hear me, if a judge could only hear me. And I have to tell them, yeah, we're not going to get there. You don't got 30 or 40 grand to deal with that issue to a trial. I get clients who come to me and say, look, I've been arrested. You got to give me a referral to a criminal lawyer. What do I do? One of the things we got to consider is, well, how serious is the charge and what kind of charge, and then how much money do you have? What do you want to spend on this thing? I can send you some really good lawyers that are really good at representing you for this particular issue. When they're good at it, they charge for it. So you're right about that. Yeah, I had a client who had an impaired charge. Whether it was right or wrong, whatever. And I referred him to a really good lawyer, and that lawyer did what we call a $15,000 guarantee. It was, here, you give me 15 grand, I'll go run the trial. If I don't win, you get your money back. And but he was successful, and that's what it cost. So you're right. Yeah, that's the system. That's what we're up against sometimes.
Yeah. So my concern is, we worry about things like food and necessities, homelessness, because those seem pretty significant. When we talk about, should we do more to assure that there truly is equal justice for everyone, justice for all?
Yeah.
Most people are like, no, it's expensive, and most of the people in the system bring it upon themselves. To some degree, that might be correct. But my issue is, if the people that get in front of the judges feel inherently like the system's a little bit fixed, that they're going to do worse because of their economic position than others, you kind of end up with a simmering resentment that I think starts to permeate society in a very not so subtle way. And I think maybe we're seeing some of that in the United States, in Minneapolis. I think maybe we're seeing some of that in Canada with some of the recent Aboriginal protests that we saw regarding pipeline and whatnot. These are people that are disenfranchised, in particular financially to some degree, and they don't get to speak with the same voice when they don't have a high-powered lawyer.
That's right.
That can call.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem. I think it's a deep problem that we need to think about how we want to address that.
So would you say that there's sort of a different idea or a different social conception about access to justice compared to access to healthcare or access to education?
I think for sure. And I think there's good reasons for that. I mean, we know, let's not be naive. We have dealt with parties or have represented parties that will go to court on a constant basis. And if there was no impediment financially, they would do it even more than they already do, right? And so there probably are some, but there's probably not that many people that are going to the doctor on a regular basis because they're agitated about their former partner or some issue. So justice is unique in the sense of left without boundaries, it invites waste, right? We know this. We know our own clients. They want to go to a court about minor issues, and you say it's better dealt with outside the system. And sometimes, no, I want my wife, husband, whoever, to be brought on the mat and made to, atone for their wrong. So it's a bit different than healthcare, but I think. So this is my point, though, is when we start seeing people rioting because they feel like they don't get heard, maybe it's time for us to ask, what is that relating to? Because I think it's too easy to go, well, it's a cop that killed a black man. Well, yeah, on the surface, but it's not just that. Obviously, it's lots
the
of
eruption of the volcano.
Killing black men, but I think it's even deeper than that. It's broader segments of society that are feeling like they don't matter.
Yeah.
Right. I think, and here's the great irony. I think Trump getting elected is also a reflection of that same sense of dispossession from government. You got this guy who's this kind of boorish outsider,
yeah,
challenges the established elite, both in the Republican and the Democratic Party, challenges the established elite in the media, the New York Times and the CNNs of the world. And while people should look at some of the stupid shit he does and go, what the fuck? In fact, I think there's huge segment of society to go, yeah, he's putting his finger in the eye of the establishment in a way that nobody has in my lifetime. And I don't care what he does, I'm going to support this guy because someone is talking to the privileged elite in a way that makes them uncomfortable. And I like that because I've been uncomfortable my whole life. And it's about time the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah, to me, that's how we got elected. He appealed to that mass, which is a mass. And that's how we could certainly get elected again. Yeah.
Which, Joe Biden, right? I mean, he's pretty establishment.
Right, exactly.
He's not as ignorant, he's not as much of a bully, and
right.
So who knows? But I think but the problem fundamentally is people feel ignored, and I think our judicial system goes a long way to contributing to that or to moderating that sense. If people can get in front of judges when they have problems and feel that they can get a fair hearing, I think that contributes to an egalitarian society where people realize they can't always have their way, and that when there's a dispute, whether it's a family issue or something, they can get in front of a judge and do okay and consider that even if they don't win, they got heard.
Yeah.
And I think by the time you get to a trial or you get in front of a judge, I think our judges do a pretty credible job of allowing people to feel that they're heard. Yeah. But I think that the lack of efficiency and the roadblocks that are completely unnecessary and the procedural humps you have to jump really go a long way for people going, well, who knows how to navigate these ridiculous, roadways except lawyers, and I can't get a lawyer because I don't have $50,000.
That's right, yeah.
So, so that's what I got to say about that.
That's good. I think you're right. We got to pay some attention to the people who feel like they aren't heard. That's important. Yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I think, so I think, I would say to Canadians, I did a short video for the NSRLP, National Self-Represented Litigants Project, and they are focused on people that can't afford lawyers. How do they navigate? And they operate on a shoestring budget, so I'm going to give them a plug here. If you got a couple extra dollars, look up the NSRLP and give them a donation because they're doing work that punches way above their weight to contribute in a way that helps people feel that they can participate in justice. And so your $50 or $100 you give to the NSRLP might help avoid the kind of things happen in Minneapolis on some level.
Yeah, make contributions, right, to that basic level that needs attention paid to, yeah.
So it's kind of my thought. It's not a new thought I've had, but it's interesting. I don't know if, you're probably not on Twitter as much as I am, but Van Jones today is variously popular and vilified. He's a black reporter, a commentator on CNN. He kind of made a comment today, like the white liberal Hillary Clinton supporters are a bigger problem for black people in the United States than the Klan. And his point, I think, is not that dissimilar from what I'm saying. Is there are people having problems, and we got to do more than pat ourselves on the back, saying, "Well, I'm not a racist, so what's the problem?"
Yeah,
it's those lousy white supremacists. Well, the white supremacists are this minuscule part of our population, but yet somehow visible minorities still feel like they don't get heard, or they don't have the same efficacy. They don't matter.
Yeah,
I think Van Jones's comment is basically all the secure white people, particularly the liberal people that think they're doing a great job. Maybe they're not. Maybe we got to do a little more. And I think justice is a part of that. Whether you're arrested by police or you're in a confrontation with police, you should feel reasonably secure that you're going to participate in how that's viewed by a judge.
Yeah.
Whether you're suing police or being charged with an offense. And I don't think people have that sense. I think there's a pretty clear And I think it's a compelling case that there are two standards of justice. There's one for people with lots of money, and there's one for everybody else, and they're not the same. And people are going to probably shit on me about that, but I mean, and I've said this before, you're an Aboriginal man charged with an offense. The Prime Minister of Canada is probably not calling the Attorney General to ask you to lay off on that offense, which is what we saw in Canada.
Yeah.
With you know, the situation this past couple of years.
Yeah.
So my comment, it's in the news, it's bothering me. And I just thought we'd switch gears a little bit and maybe ask people to think a little bit about justice and what they could do to make it better,
Yeah.
more responsive to everybody.
Good.
So we're going to end it with that?
Let's end it. That's good. Yeah. That's
a little bit shorter, a little bit off topic, a little topical, maybe. Any plans for the weekend?
Yeah, I have got a lot of work to catch up on. We're still struggling without childcare to make up for our work. So my wife and I, we're going to bring my mom into our bubble, our COVID bubble, if you will. So that's going to help relieve the pressure of childcare a little bit, so we can each kind of catch up a little on work. So that's my weekend. It's going to be a little bit of work. How about you?
No major plans. I got a client coming in on Sunday, oddly enough. But other than that, golfing a little bit tomorrow. I'll probably play a good 2 or 3 hours of Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, which I'm just addicted to right now. I probably shouldn't, but I mean, it's online shooting people. What a juxtaposition for what we've been talking about.
A little irony there, yeah.
So anyway, so we'll call it a day. Appreciate everyone who watches this. And again, encourage anyone to email or make comments on our YouTube page. And I guess we'll see everyone next week.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers. Whiskey sour.